Would you like to have more inner peace? Would you like to wake up in the morning with a smile on your face, no matter who won the elections, for example? Like, would you like that? How would that feel? I don't want to waste my energy on this. I want to invest myself into something greater, something more meaningful, something more uplifting, something that serves me better, that feels better to me personally. What can you do? What steps you can make? Because I think that a lot of people are stuck simply because we don't know what else to do. So we just kind of, follow the crowd, go with the others, and something will happen, right? We cannot force everybody to think the same way and to have the same values and the same principles. It is impossible. And if it will be possible, we would be like robots. We would be like clones of each other. It would be horrible. The whole diversity of the world will go away. So stop fighting against things and people in general. Hello and welcome back to my podcast, Self-Discovery Simplified. Today I'm going to start with a trigger warning because I know that this is a touchy subject, especially after, the US elections. But did you know that most people who follow politics actually feel stressed and anxious about political news? Maybe you are one of them, or maybe you know somebody who is like that. Then this episode is for you. And really, this episode is not about taking sides, but to help you to understand how politics can affect your mental health, and more importantly, what can you do about it and how can you feel better. So my promise is that by the end of this episode, you will have practical strategies to protect your inner peace, no matter what is happening in the political world. So keep listening. I was born in Hungary in 1978, and at that time it was still a communist country, part of the communist bloc in Eastern Europe. I was like 11 years old when the Berlin Wall fell down, and there was a big change of regime from the communist era. We went to a democratic republic, and obviously I wasn't, so interested in politics during that time, but still this was a very meaningful event, in all of our lives who lived, in that country and in that area during that time. And then later, in my 20s, I moved to Ireland, and I lived 6 years in Ireland, especially, when it was the big boom of the Celtic Tiger, and it was, the leading economy during that time, from, well, I don't know, early 2000s, right? Something like that. And right now I live in Mexico, in the Caribbean, for the last 12 years, and I extensively traveled and spent a lot of time in the US and Central America, all over really, from New Zealand to Hawaii, like lots of places. There is a couple of insights that I gained during my, very unusual life, and having the opportunity to live in very different political environments and social environments and belief systems and all of these things. And this is some of the things that I observed. The first thing that really stood out for me after like a short or long period of time, whatever you want to call, like 20 years, is that really the real divide is not between two sides, the left or the right, or the blacks and the whites, or the, Christians and the Muslims and all these kind of things. But what was more observable for me was that it was between kind of the top 1%. And what I mean by that is the people who are having most of the power and most of the resources, financial resources and any other resources. Yeah, they are this like top very, very small percent. I don't know, 1%, 2%, 3%. That have basically everything, right? And then the rest of the people who basically live on a survival level, or in some countries, maybe there is some, small middle class, but really the big majority of the rest of that 90 something percent lives in poverty or in the survival mode. I started to think about this, why is this, and what does it say about the world, right? Because that's definitely something that I could observe, in any environment, no matter even in the poorest country, there are people who have all the resources and all the power and all the money, and they are the ones who are making the big decisions, and the rest of the people are following those rules, right? What I want to say with this is that if you look around the world, if you ever travel, you will notice is that most people live in a survival mode. Most people work, every day and don't have a lot of savings and hoping for a better lives. And most people are not very happy and fulfilled, in general. Another thing that I observe is that no matter who is in power, people are rarely happy, that people always complain. People complained in Hungary, people complained about politics in Ireland, in Mexico, in America, in, Costa Rica, in New Zealand. Like it was very rare that I don't even know if I ever heard somebody to say, wow, this person is so inspiring and so great and did such a great things, and I'm so happy with my decision, and I'm really glad and happy with what they did. That's kind of rare. Like most people feel angry, sad, disappointed, frustrated, with the political situation, regardless really who is in power, right? So two things that people live, most people on a survival level, and people are not happy with the leadership, no matter, where you go, which country you go, or that's at least, like the general outline, the general outlook. Also something, that I observe, and you can look back at history, right, is that people are always hoping for that the next leader is going to be better, right? Is going to be the savior, the hero. That's really rarely happens, it's mostly, that ends up in disappointment, right? And promises not kept. So yeah, so these were some of my observations, and as I started to dig deeper, and I think if you look deeper and research and do your own research and read a lot of books and learn history, if you take a deeper look, you're gonna discover that the two wings belong to the same bird, so to say. So because of these insights that I gained through my own life experience, I really never was very interested in or invested in politics, because I felt that, those people so far away from me and has, just, of course, they have effect in my life, but, they don't care about my best interest necessarily. And there are other ways that I can use my energy and focus my energy that will bring me, things that I wish I desire, and not instead of, waiting for somebody to solve kind of problems for me, and I'm not talking about global problems, obviously, but, my personal issues, right? So I never voted. I never was part of any political party or affiliation, because, and this is just my personal opinion and don't take offense, but I felt that somehow it's like a waste of my energy and something that is really, out of my power, what is happening. And the more invested I am in, the worse it is for me, like personally. And yeah, why is that? Why do we feel, or why did I feel, that I don't want to invest, into this so deeply? A couple of reasons, and that's a good, way to explain, I think, why we are so addicted to political drama, right? And we are, well, not me personally, but a lot of people are very invested in like a certain party, like a certain ideology. But also you can observe the very same kind of phenomenon in sports, right? When people have a team that they follow for a long time and they support that team and they are happy with the team and sad with the team, and they dedicate a lot of time and effort. So it's kind of the same thing, like we put a huge emotional investment, and it's like taking us on this emotional roller coaster, because what happens is that when your party loses, then you feel devastated, right? And if they win, then you feel great. This is very similar to what's happening in the brain chemistry and in the emotional expression when you are taking drugs, right? That you have extreme highs and then you have extreme lows, right? You are kind of moving like a pendulum between that two. Personally, for me, like, I don't like that feeling, I don't feel good, because it's impossible to always feel great and always, your team or your party always succeed and does everything right. It's impossible, right? So you're gonna, of course, feel disappointment and anger at some point, and all kinds of other emotions that may be, not so pleasant or comfortable or desired by you. That's what it means, that we are addicted, that our emotional state is like completely dependent on an outside force, like a political party or a team or something like that. And if they are happy, we are happy. If they win, we are happy. If they lose, we are devastated. We are angry and all that kind of stuff. And I remember, when I grew up in Hungary, and there's everywhere, I'm sure you can relate to football fans and how deeply they can be invested, supporting their team. And sometimes were big football matches, in the city, then we had to be very careful, and avoid certain areas after the match because the people would come out from the stadium, and for sure half of the people will be angry, about the result, right? Because both teams cannot win, and then they would wreak havoc sometimes, the supporters, the fan on the streets, and be aggressive, and be aggressive to people, be aggressive to property, destroy things. This is what I'm talking about, right? Or emotional reaction and the expression is depending on this, and it can take us to the very extreme, very extreme high and lows, like you are on some drug trip, and of course the high feels good, but personally I'm more preferring like balance and more like inner peace. The other point that I was making is that people are rarely happy, so there's very rare that everything goes well and they always win and always everything is perfect. So mostly, you don't feel that so good. That's the main reason, for me personally, why I feel that I want to invest my energy, my attention, my focus to something different, that makes me feel better, that serves me better, that serves the collective better, at the end of the day. Because, what's happening when we are so invested in the political identity is, when you get really sad or angry, a lot of people just it's hard to contain that kind of intensity of emotion. So a lot of people lash out to others and hurt other people and can harm personal connections, because of political disagreements. I'm sure you know about people who maybe don't talk in the family or lost friendships or family members or community because of ideology, because they had different points of view, and they just choose, to let go of the relationship, and as defense is kind of mechanism to protect, right, the ideology. This is very sad. A lot of people don't notice that oftentimes you're angry or hateful towards others actually in the name of love or acceptance, right? So you want acceptance, and then you are lashing out to other people or angry at other people who are maybe not accepting. But you're doing the same thing because you're not accepting them and you are angry at them. And what you need to advocate for, stand for, is the inclusivity and the unity, right? And the equality, but you fall into the same trap, right? And then it's just the same thing in a different way. And this is like a trap, and it's a blind spot, and it's hard to notice, but this often happens, And what happens, on an emotional level, on a mental level, when when you invest yourself into something so deeply is that you're going to experience a lot of stress, anxiety. As I mentioned to you at the very beginning, the majority of the people, this is the main emotions that they feel around it, like stress, anxiety, anger, depression, possibly, and personal disempowerment. You are spending your time, your energy, your focus listening, reading, and being sad about things. If you ever personally lost somebody because of political differences or different point of views, or if you ever heard somebody who wasn't on the same opinion, then you have to ask the question that is this worth it? Is it worth losing human connections, losing friends, family, community, losing possibly employment, money, like a lot of things, and creating separation, creating division just to stand up or protect a belief and ideology that you believe in? What is more important to you? Most people, if you ask most people, they just want to have peace, right? So most people say what's more important for me is love and kindness, and things like that. So if that's the case, then you need to put that on the scale and see how important it is to defend something or to try to convince somebody, to believe in your perspective, and losing sleep over it, losing your mental health over it, losing your emotional well-being over it, creating for yourself a lot of stress and anxiety, and harming definitely your relationships or harming, your environment. This is the cost of that political identity and that deep investment, that a lot of people choose to make. And maybe in some cases, you don't even know why you believe in what you believe, because maybe you grew up in a family, in an environment that gave you these perspectives and these values from very early on, and it was just natural for you to really follow it, because that happens, right? So the reason why we get so invested in politics is actually something much deeper. It goes beyond the political question, because the deeper need that it fulfills is belonging. And it's the same with the sports and the sport teams that I was mentioning earlier. So we want to belong. That's a basic human need, belonging, that you are accepted, you are belong, you have like-minded people, you have affirmation, comfort, all these kind of things, familiarity. So these are very important basic human needs that, even unconsciously you are trying to fulfill. One of the obvious ways to belong to a party, belong to a sports club, to something that a lot of people, belongs to. Just if you belong to a bigger crowd, maybe there is a little bit bigger sense of belonging. So the real need is belonging, and that's a basic human need, and it's very important, that we fulfill that need. We unconsciously trying to fulfill that need all the time, and one of the obvious way to fulfill it is to, have your favorite team, or to belong to a political, party, or become politically affiliated. The question that we need to ask, is there another way? Is there a better way that I can feel that need, that deep need that we all have, that need of belonging, that would serve me better, that wouldn't have, those side effects or negative consequences, like, damaging your mental health and losing sleep over it and not feeling good and, hurting others and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, and we're going to answer that question. So stay with us. Before we go on, I would love to know if you can leave a comment that how is your political views are influencing your mental health? Do you allow politics to dictate your mood? Is this something that happens to you, or this is something that is not a challenge for you at all, which is, I would love to hear about that too. Would you like to have more inner peace? Would you like to wake up in the morning with a smile on your face, no matter who won the elections, for example? example, like, would you like that? How would that feel to you? Is this something that you would prefer instead of, the stress and then the anxiety? So just reflect on these questions and leave your answer in the comment, because we always learn from each other. So what can you do about this whole scenario? Like, if you ever come to a point when you decide, okay, like, I'm finished, it's enough, I don't want to waste my energy on this. I want to invest myself into something greater, something more meaningful, something more uplifting, something that serves me better, that feels better to me personally. What can you do? What steps you can make? Because I think that a lot of people are stuck simply because we don't know what else to do. So we just kind of, follow the crowd, go with the others, and something will happen, right? But there are ways, and you can discover many ways for yourself as well. And if you have any that we don't mention here, please let us know. So first thing that I would like to say to you is to stop fighting against things that you do not agree with. Stop fighting battles that you cannot win, because it's pointless. It's such a waste of energy, because you cannot force other people to change their mind. Okay, just because on a Facebook post you're gonna make a comment, that person who has the opposite belief is not gonna be like, oh, interesting comment, oh, it really makes sense, I think I changed my mind around this whole thing, from today. It's not working like that. Changing your mind, especially, something that you are invested in so deeply, it takes time, and it also takes voluntary, participation. You have to want to do that, and nobody can force you to do that. If somebody would come to you, and would want to convince you now of something that you deeply believe in, would want to convince you the opposite, like, it would be not easy for you to give up your perspective, I assure you. So, we have to accept that other people have that different point of views. We cannot force everybody to think the same way and to have the same values and the same principles. It is impossible. And if it will be possible, we would be like robots. We would be like clones of each other. It would be horrible. The whole diversity of the world will go away. So stop fighting against things and people in general. That's one of my advice, because that's really, really helped me greatly in my life, because I was such a fighter. I was such a rebel. I was such a pioneer, and I spent great energy and effort, to defend things and fight for things, and it was not worth it. There is a better way to achieve what you want. What is a better way? Okay, so I always say that instead of fighting against, stand for something. Okay, so don't fight against, but stand for something. So if you say, hey, I fight against hatred or racism or discrimination or whatever, then change your perspective and say, I am standing up for unity, I'm standing up for inclusion, I'm standing up for equality, I'm standing up for love and acceptance, because it's a very different energy to stand up for something and advocate for something versus to fight against something. It's very different. It's a completely different ball game. But the result is kind of the same for you, right? Because that's what you really believe in. You want equality, right? And you're fighting against people who don't believe in equality or don't want to accept it, right? So let's let go of that and come back and stand up for equality. And how does that look like? First of all, treat people like equals. That's how it starts, that you are starting to embody and being an example of what you want. So if you want acceptance, first of all, you have to be accepting. If you want equality, you have to treat people equally, and this is the first thing that you can do. The automatic result of that will be that you will be a natural inspiration, an example, a positive example example for others, because they're going to look at you and they're going to see how you treat people, how you behave, how you interact, what are your actions. And that says more than 1,000 words, and especially true for politics, right? So you can be an example, a positive example, and you can be an inspiration for others if you embody and do what you believe in and start applying those principles in your life, right? More than that, you can choose your communities and your tribes where you belong more carefully, okay? So you can, for example, if you can join a gardening group, okay? You like gardening, you can join a gardening group, you can put your energy into learning about gardening and gardening itself, which is very relaxing and rewarding and beautiful, right? Create a sustainable community or live in a sustainable way or look for solutions or belong to groups and communities who have, the same goal, like more harmonious living, more sustainable living, living in a different way that is more aligned in what you believe in, what you want to advocate for, and belonging to communities who have similar values and who also demonstrate and embody those values, and belonging to those groups and putting your energy towards that, building something different, showing to people how you can live in a different way, how you can do it differently, because, we are very much stuck in the rut, and in the old ways. So we need to see that, how does that look like, when you are more kind and more sustainable and more connected and more loving to everything and towards everything in this world. Create a meaningful life. What is your legacy? If you look back your life right now, and you can do that mini review right now, are you proud of what you did, how you behaved, what you created, what you stood for? Or maybe you are not completely happy, then, think about how you can make, a positive legacy. You can say, you can feel, I am so proud of that. I did that. I was a part of that, and I feel good about it. So yeah, there is a ton of things that you can do, but the main thing is, instead of the fighting and putting your energy into that, or giving your energy away completely and your power away to, like anything, groups, institutions, ideologies, is not the best way, because it's very disempowering. So you can choose a different way if you feel ready, if you had enough, of the same old, and the roller coaster that we were talking about. And another thing is that, hatred and war will not solve anything. That never was a solution, and hatred and war will create more hatred and war and opposition and separation, because no matter what happens, the other, half will feel justified to take revenge and get back. And then this never ends. It's like a chain of pain, because everybody, you did that, now we're going to do this. And like, it can only end if somebody says, okay, enough, let's come to some kind of peace, acceptance, forgiveness, and move on in a different way. And healing only can happen through love. Hatred only breeds hatred, and the real antidote is love, like healing and evolution and coming together and mending relationships and mending communities. That can only happen with love, acceptance, compassion, kindness. And these are the things that you need. These are the qualities that we need to bring healing into our communities, into our personal lives, into this world, and do you want to stand for this, or do you want to stand for perpetuating the division, no matter what side you stand on? Because if you are standing on either side, you are perpetuating that division and that conflict and that war. So how can you, rise above? How can you transcend? How can you choose something different that would bring people together and heal that opposition, right, that we are talking about? And you have personal power and you have personal responsibility responsibility to do this because we are the collective and we are humanity, and you are an integral and important part. And the change happens on the level of the individual first, and this change happens inside of you and inside of us when you say, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm going to do something different, something better. If enough people comes to the same conclusion, that we will see collective change. So you are important, and what you do is important. And I can tell you from my personal experience that my life is so much more peaceful, that I don't watch the news, I don't follow the politics, and I use my energy, in a completely different way and share it with people in a different way. And obviously my community is very much like that. Most people don't have a television. We never talk about anything on the TV or any politics because nobody really follows it. And of course, I'm not living in a cave, and I live in a small town, and I go to the coffee place or something, and whatever important thing happens, the news reach me. So it's not that I don't want to hear it, but I'm not putting any effort or extra, neither of my friends. And I never had a conflict over politics with anybody in my life, really. But I guess I'm talking about within my like-minded community, because I'm sure a lot of people will disagree with some things that I said in this episode, but that's okay. So shift your focus and don't waste your energy on politics, and dedicate your life to something that you're passionate about, that you believe in, that uplifts yourself, your spirit, that uplifts others, that contributes to the collective well-being of the world. And you can do that, and you have that power, and it is your choice. Remember that your happiness is in your hands, and focus your energy on self-discovery, self-empowerment, because I can guarantee that if you do that, you will see positive results in your life, and you will be way more peaceful and way more happier and way more relaxed. You have this choice, and our choice is our responsibility. So if you want to share with us in the comments, how politics control you or don't control you, if you have a better ways, share your better ways. And thank you for listening. See you in the next episode.